and welcome to Subjects Academy Learner. Today we are going to be starting a new chapter called The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. So this is a very important chapter because they'll be giving you 1 marks, 2 marks, 5 marks, and if they don't give it for the 5 marks, they will surely give it for the 4 marks, that is case based studies. All right, so let's jump in. I'm going to try to conclude this chapter under 25 minutes. So all right, so this picture is very important because this talks about the utopian vision of Friedrich Soyu in 1848. They can ask you what is so utopian about this, because in 1848, when this picture was painted by Friedrich Soyu, all of the nation depicted here in marching in a long train with all of its women and men of all ages did not exist as a nation state. All right, did not exist as a free nation. Only USA and Switzerland at the time were nation states, but as you can see, Belgium, two kingdom of Sicilies, which is now known as Italy, are marching in a long train offering homage to Statue of Liberty, which is she's holding in one hand the rights of Charter of Man, and in one hand the a torch of enlightenment. And up above in the skies you can see Christ, angels, priests blessing on this or gazing and blessing upon the scene, symbolizing fraternity. All right, so moving on, that is what is so utopian about this vision. They'll ask you for the 2 marks or the 3 marks. All right, now we have to study about the French Revolution and the idea of the nation. So the French revolutionaries introduced a lot of measures so they can build a a collective sense of identity among their citizens, such as we'll see right here, that is the ideas of la patrie, that means the fatherland, right here, and la citoyen, that means citizen, which emphasized the notation of a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. All right, a new French, let's mark this because they might ask you for the 5 marks. They have many times that explain how the French revolutionaries introduced a sense of collective identity among their French citizens, all right, in 1789. All right, so the first thing is you have to write this, the first point, and the second is the second is a new French flag, the tricolor, was chosen to replace the former royal standard one. All right, this implies that a new nation is building. All right, it's a new nation, so that is what the idea is. Okay, the general, okay, that is the second point. All right, so the next is the estate general was elected by a body of active citizens renamed the National Assembly. That is the third point. All right, so that is the third point. And now hymns were commemorated, hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs were commemorated. Martyrs mean people who have died for this cause. All right, like we have Subhash Chandra Bose, Mahatma Gandhi, who have died. Sorry, not Mahatma Gandhi, only Subhash Chandra Bose, who have died for the freedom of our country. That is what martyr means. Like another example, Jesus. All right, so in the name of the nation, a centralized administrative system was put in place, and it formulated uniform laws for all its citizens within its territory. Internal custom duties and dues were abolished. A uniform systems of weights and measures were adopted. Regional dialects were discouraged, and French, as it was spoken and written in Paris, became the common language of the nation. All right, there you have the fourth point. There you have the fourth point, fifth point, and the sixth point. So you have to write all of these 6 points for your 5 marks. All right, I hope you do. We're discouraged. All right, moving on. And now we have to talk about the Napoleonic Code or the Civil Code of 1804, which is also known as the Napoleonic Code. This Napoleonic Code came in 1804, obviously, when Napoleon came into ruling. all right, when he conquered France, and when he crowned himself as the emperor of France. All right, he was a dictator, and he took away this code, or this law, a series of laws, took away privileged based on birth, established equality before the law, and secured the right to property. Alright, this code was exported to the regions under French control in the Dutch Republic, Switzerland, Italy, and Germany. Napoleon simplified administrative divisions, abolished feudal system, and freed peasants from serfdom. Feudal system matlab kya hai? Like there's a large landowner and there's a farmer. Farmer will take like a plot of land to cultivate, and 50% of the produce will go to the landowner, and 50 the farmer will keep, and the farmer will also pay some amount of money for that, like rent, okay, for that land. All right, that is called feudal system. And it was abolished when Napoleonic Code came, and then freed peasants from serfdom. Serfdom matlab there would be a tenant who own many peasants who will be working for him. All right, and then manorial dues. That matlab if you own some money to a large landowner, or a or some, yeah, large landowner, you have to, you do not give it back. All right, it will be abolished, it will be cleared. Like some governments will say, for every farmer the loans will be cleared, like that. All right, in towns, guild restrictions were removed. Guild ka matlab, it's like some artisans, or a form of people working in a same conditions or same work. They will form together a community to support their cause, to fight for their cause. That is it. That's what guild restrictions mean. There were guild restrictions that were in introduced, but it was removed. Okay, so they can make these guilds now. Okay, and transport and communication systems were improved. Peasants, artisans, workers, and new businessmen enjoyed newfound freedom. Business and small scale producers in goods particular began to realize that uniform laws, standardized weights and measures, and common national currency would facilitate the movement of exchange of goods and capitals from one region to another. Like for example, in India, when you trade from state to state, it's very easy because we have the same currency, the rupees, and the it will be, sir, if the tomatoes rate in Kerala is 40 rupees and the tomato rate in Chhattisgarh will be 40 rupees, it won't change. Even in Delhi, onions rate is like 50 rupees. Even in Karnataka, it would be 50 rupees. All right, the government issues all of these standardized weights and measures. एक फुट लॉन्ग की सिल्क क्लॉथ के लिए इतने रुपए, मतलब इतने ही रुपए चार्ज करने होंगे उस ट्रेडर या मर्चेंट को, उसके above नहीं या नीचे नहीं. ठीक है, alright, that is what this means. Okay, but all of these advantages of the Napoleonic Code started to outweigh the disadvantages. Right, disadvantages बहुत बढ़ते गए. Like for example, Napoleon wanted to conquer all of Europe. All right, and he needed muscle power for that. He has support, he had money, he had everything, but he didn't have muscle power. Muscle power का मतलब है soldiers. He needed army, he needed strong army to conquer all of these Europes. Conquer all of the regions in Europe. Right, so he started to started forced recruitment. Right, so next, the making of nationalism in Europe. All right, and even another disadvantages, there was no political freedom. All right, in the political sphere there was no freedom. In the commerce, in the trade wala section, there was freedom, right? But in the political there was no freedom, and people need that. Okay, moving on, we have to study the making of nationalism in Europe. Okay, so if you look at the map of 18th century Europe, you will find that there were no nation states. Okay, so we have to discuss some example right here of the Habsburg Empire, or Austro-Hungary Empire, or the Habsburg Empire. Okay, and it ruled over different regions of people, included Alpine region, the Tyrol, Austria, and the Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, as where the aristocracy, that means the rich people, predominantly spoke German. All right, it also included Italian speaking provinces of Lombardy, And then in Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, okay, while other half spoke variety of dialects. Dialects का मतलब है there is a language like Rajasthani, and in if you go to regions in Jaipur, they might speak a bit of variety of Rajasthani. They might mix in Hindi or Urdu or something like that, and in some other regions they might speak some other variety of Rajasthani, right? So that is what dialects mean. In Galicia, the aristocracy, that means the rich people or the kings, queens, spoke Polish. Besides these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of the empire a mass subjects of peasant peoples. Obviously there will be a rich middle class, the kings and the queens, and then there will be peasants people, okay. द बोहेमियन पेजेंट्स का कॉम्पोजिशन बता रहे हैं यहाँ पर. बोहेमियंस सॉल्वैक्स टू द नॉर्थ, एंड देन सॉल्वियंस इन कैरोलिना, एंड क्रॉट्स टू द साउथ. क्रॉट्स का मतलब क्रोएशिया से जो लोग हैं क्रॉट्स को बोलते हैं, और रोमन्स टू द ईस्ट इन ट्रांसल्वेनिया. सच डिफरेंसेस डिड नॉट easily promote a sense of political unity. Obviously if you need like some nationalism, growth of nationalism, or if you want your region to become a nation state, you need a unity. You want all of the people fighting together. If like 5 to 6 people are fighting, it won't make a difference. If the whole nation is fighting, if the whole region's people are fighting, you get something. There will be a change, right? So you needed a common allegiance to the emperor. They only had that to common, okay. And then the aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was dominant class on the continent. But they were less in number. Obviously in the world there are, if we compare the ratio, it is like 1:7 or something. All right, because there are not even 1:7, it's like 0.5:7 if we imagine 8 billion people, right? So that is the ratio of the rich to the poor, right? If we talk about that. So, and these rich people were often tied to each other by marriages. Like they were tied, like in the olden days, even in the kings and the queens, they would marry each other's child so they can have these territories and they can rule together like that. All right, so moving on, now we are going to see the industrial thing in Europe and how the middle class emerged from this, or the working class emerged from this. In western parts of Central Europe, the growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns and the emergence of commercial class, whose existence based on the production of the market. See, when industrialization takes place, you need workers in, like in factories or in offices. You need workers, so that means there would be creating of the working class, okay, whose life depended on the production of the market, production for the market. If there was a market for this good, so the factory production will be more and the workers will get more jobs, right? Okay, industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century, but in France and parts of Germany it started to occur only during the 19th century, okay. In its wake, a new social group came into being, a working class population and middle class, which made up the industrialists, okay, businessmen, professionals. In Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were smaller in number. Till late 19th century, it was among the educated liberal middle classes. The idea of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. All right, so if you are an educated liberal middle class person, you would have the ideas of national unity and abolition of the aristocracy, or abolition of the dictatorship, or abolition of the monarchy. All right, so moving on. What did liberal nationalism mean for? Liberal nationalism meant also a thing. They asked what did liberal nationalism stand for 5 marks in some of the pre-board papers that I have analyzed. All right, so please do study this topic. So liberalism is derived from the Latin root liber, which means free, and for the new middle classes, liberalism stood for free for the individual and equality before the law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Consent का मतलब you will ask before changing the law. If you want to make a law, so like after 21 years old, you have to vote. You get the right to vote. You have to get the consent of the people. So if the people would be like, okay, we agree, then you make that law. If you be like टमाटो का प्राइस like 100 रुपए होंगे, नहीं अग्री करेंगे, ठीक है, 40 कर दो, हाँ अग्री कर देंगे. तो इसीलिए लाइक गवर्नमेंट बाय कंसेंट और लाइक कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ गवर्नमेंट बाय कंसेंट. सिंस द फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन लिबरलिज्म हैड स्टूड फॉर द एंड ऑफ हेरिस्टोक्रेसी एंड क्लेरिकल प्रिविलेजेस. क्लेरिकल प्रिविलेजेस का मतलब है जो प्रीस्ट होता है, फादर्स, पोप, उनको बहुत सारे प्रिविलेजेस मिलता है क्योंकि दे वर्क इन द चर्च. और हमारे Hinduism maybe we respect people who work for the God, who work in temples, हाँ है ना. तो इसीलिए क्लरिकल प्रिविलेजेस और हेरिस्टोक्रेसी, मोनार्की और ये सबको बंद कर देना चाहते थे, ठीक है. अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव गवर्नमेंट थ्रू पार्लियामेंट. ओके. And in the 19th century, liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. Private property का मतलब like if you are a aristocracy, you can like forcefully take this property owned by a peasant. So that was not going to happen in this liberal ideas. All right. So yet equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. Suffrage का मतलब the right to vote. Okay. All right, because even in the French, after the French Revolution, after 1789, after the formation of the National Assembly, only people about 21 years old and who can pay the wages of 3 days in a week, like whatever they earned in a week, day by day wage, if they can pay 3 days of wage as a tax to the nation or the state, they would have the right to vote. So that is what they are conveying, telling. You will recall in the French Revolution, which marked the first political experiment of the liberal democracy, the right to vote and to get elected was granted exclusively to property owning men. All right, so that's what they're saying. Men without property and women all were excluded from political rights. Only for a brief period under the Jacobean did all the adult males enjoy suffrage. Not even then, women did not enjoy suffrage, alright. However, the Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced women to the status of a minor subjected to the authority of the fathers and husband. That means women were regarded as a minor and they weren't allowed to vote and they would be a subject. That means husbands and their fathers would take care of the women. They would have to, if they father told you would have to marry, they would have to marry. They don't have any other choice. All right. Throughout the 19th century, early 20th century, women and non-participated men organized opposition movements demanding equal rights to vote. Obviously, they would have to in the economic sphere. So if they ask you to write about the liberal nationalism stand for, you have to write in the political sphere, economical sphere. Very important, right? So, and even the French revolutionaries, okay, in the economic sphere, liberalism stood for freedom of markets and abolition of state imposed restrictions on the capital of goods. State imposed restrictions ka matlab you cannot trade this with that another state or something like that. Okay, during the 19th century, it was a strong demand of the emerging middle class. All right, they wanted, because the emerging middle class also meant the working class, the small businessmen or big businessmen, right? They wanted to trade, they wanted to increase their commerce or something like that. All right, let us take the example of German speaking regions. See, we have a German speaking, we have 39 states of the German speaking people. So traveling in 1833, मतलब अर्ली 19th सेंचुरी मान लो, ठीक है, नॉट मिड 19th सेंचुरी, अर्ली 19th सेंचुरी. इसका मतलब हुआ इफ अ पर्सन फ्रॉम वन स्टेट वांट्स टू ट्रेड विद अ पर्सन फ्रॉम अनदर स्टेट ऑफ द सेम गुड, मतलब हम सिल्क ट्रेड करना चाहते हैं, तो इंडिया में तो बहुत इजी है बिकॉज इट्स अ फिक्स्ड प्राइस. बट ये जर्मन कन्फेडरेशन है ना, नेपोलियन ने इसको बांटा गया था लाइक 39 स्टेट्स में, उस पे इतना इजी नहीं था, ठीक है, इतना इजी नहीं था ट्रेड करना, क्योंकि यहाँ पर एक एग्जाम्पल दिया है एन एल टेक्सटाइल, मतलब एक टाइप ऑफ क्लॉथ कॉल्ड एल. सो इन फ्रैंकफर्ट इट वुड गेट यू फॉर 59.5 centimeter for like one rupee मान लो, ठीक है, cloth. And in Mainz it would get you for 55.1 centimeter. In Nuremberg it would get you for 65.6 centimeter. In Fahrenberg it would give you for 53.5 centimeters. So you can see the difference, all right. And you can see that difference, right? So these were the customs barriers which would have to be lifted, right? So it would have to be united, all of these. So in any region of that country, or any region of that nation, the thing would be same, all right. And we have to discuss about zollverein, or the custom union. In 1833 a custom union, or zollverein, was formed to initiative of Persia and joined by most of the German states. This union abolished tariff barriers. That means if you are traveling from this state to this state, you have to give some tax to that state's barrier, right? You have that tax, right? And then reduce the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. So ये जो 39 confederations थे, उसमें 30 से भी ज़्यादा currencies थे, ठीक है, उसमें सिर्फ 2 currencies में रिड्यूस कर दिया गया. ओके, द क्रिएशन ऑफ अ नेटवर्क ऑफ रेलवेज फर्दर सिमुलेटेड मोबिलिटी. मोबिलिटी का मतलब है जो इजी से ट्रैवल कर पाए और ट्रेड्स और गुड्स के साथ, ठीक है. और हार्नेसिंग इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट एंड ऑटो नेशनल यूनिफिकेशन. अ वेव ऑफ इकोनॉमिक नेशनलिज्म स्ट्रेंथन द वाइडर नेशनलिस्ट सेंटिमेंट्स ग्रोइंग एट द टाइम, राइट. दिस इकोनॉमिक जो हुआ वो मिडिल क्लास पीपल को अट्रैक्ट करेगा. जो एक नेशन स्टेट का एडवांटेजेस है वो बहुत सारे हैं इन लोगों के फ़ायदे के लिए, पर ये अरिस्टोक्रेटिक और ये डिक्टेटरशिप और ये मोनार्की वाले बहुत सारी डिसएडवांटेजेस है इकोनॉमिक और पॉलिटिकल स्फीयर में, क्योंकि एक ही पर्सन है, एक ही नेशन को रिप्रेजेंट करने वाला. ये होता नहीं. रीजन्स के लिए तो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव चाहिए, स्टेट के लिए चाहिए, डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स के लिए चाहिए, ताल्लुक के लिए भी चाहिए, नेशनल लेवल में रिप्रेजेंटेट करने वाले, ठीक है, पॉलिटिकल स्फीयर में. और इकोनॉमिक स्फीयर में टैरिफ्स, बैरियर्स और ये कन्फेडरेशंस ये बहुत कंफ्यूजिंग थे. उन्हें चाहिए थे यूनिफॉर्म वेट्स, लॉस एंड मेजर्स, राइट. सो मूविंग ऑन, न्यू कंजर्वेटिज्म आफ्टर 1815. So they can ask you for the 1 marks. I saw a very nice question. What was the type of government that came after the Treaty of Vienna? They gave like democracy, conservative, liberal और कुछ और था, पर उसमें सही है conservative, because all of the monarchy aristocrats came together in Austria for the Treaty of Vienna in 1815 after the defeat of Napoleon in Waterloo in 1814, and they wanted to bring back this conservative wala regime, right? So we'll obviously study about this. In 1815, the representatives of the European power, Britain, Russia, Persia and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met in Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. You also have one of the, okay, we'll see. And the Congress was hosted by Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. All right, and they can ask you for the 1 marks. And the delegates, that means the people who came to this meeting. The delegates का मतलब है the people who came to this meeting to represent their state. मतलब ब्रिटेन represent करने वाले कोई और होगी. द क्वीन, द किंग तो नहीं आएंगे, ठीक है. रशिया को represent करने वाले वहाँ के डिक्टेटर या किंग क्वीन नहीं आएंगे, ठीक है. उसमें एक डेलीगेट को भेजा जाएगा जो उनके काम को निभाएंगे. ओके, जो क्या है, बातचीत करने के लिए. ओके, ठीक है. ड्रू अप द ट्रीटी ऑफ वियना ऑफ 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. The Bourbon dynasty अब changes okay, changes बोल रहे हैं, नोट कर लो, ठीक है. Oh my god, ये क्या है भाई. ओके, ठीक है. एक चेंज है. द बर्बन डायनेस्टी विच हैड बीन डिपोज्ड during the French Revolution was restored to power, and France lost territories it has annexed under Napoleon. See, all of the Luxembourg या Maze, Brussels, ये सब हुआ था ना, like annexed from these फ्रांस नेपोलियन ने कॉन्कर किया था ना, उन सभी को बांटा गया फिर से. ओके, आफ्टर नेपोलियन डाइड अ सीरीज ऑफ स्टेट्स वाज सेट अप एट द बाउंड्रीज ऑफ फ्रांस टू प्रिवेंट द फ्रेंच एक्सपेंशन इन फ्यूचर. तो एक ये फ्रेंच नेशन है और इसके सामने एक स्टेट्स बना दिए गए ताकि ये लोग जो है वो रेवोल्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे. ठीक है, ये बोल रहे हैं ये लोग. ठीक है, और and thus the kingdoms of Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Persia was given important new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control to northern Italy. But German Confederation of 39 states, who had been set up by Napoleon, was untouched. To the east, Russia was given part of Poland, while Persia was given portion of Saxony. The main intention was to restore monarchies. I told you conservative regime लाना चाहते थे, ठीक है, that been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. ठीक है, and conservatives regime set up in 1815 were autocratic. Okay, they did not tolerate criticism and dissent. That means criticism का मतलब if you mock them, if you try to ये लोग ऐसे हैं हम ये नहीं मानेंगे, they did not tolerate that. They would banish you. All right, and sought to curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of the autocratic governments. All right, most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in the newspapers, books, plays, songs, reflected idea of लिबर्टी. सेंसरशिप का आपको पता है, जो लाइक एक रिस्ट्रिक्शन डालना प्रेस या मीडिया के ऊपर, जो आप ये नहीं कह सकते पीएम के बारे में, ये नहीं कह सकते प्रेसिडेंट के बारे में, ऐसा. पर इंडिया में तो सेंसरशिप नहीं है. ये कोई और एक न्यूज़ चैनल क्रिटिसाइज करेंगी किसी पीएम को और किसी नेता को कर सकती है, कोई भी नहीं रोक सकता उस न्यूज़ चैनल को. ठीक है, अब द रेवोल्यूशनरीज के बारे में पूछेंगे यहाँ पर आप सिर्फ जीएसओ पे. मजीनी वॉज बॉर्न इन जिनोवा इन 1707. ही बिकेम ए मेंबर ऑफ द सीक्रेट सोसाइटी कार्बोनारी. एज अ यंग मैन ऑफ 24 ही वॉज सेंट इन टू एग्जाइल फॉर इन 1831 फॉर अटेम्प्टिंग अ रेवोल्यूशनरी इन Liguria. He subsequently found two more underground societies. First, Young Italy and Marseille, that is in France, and then Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men of Poland, France, Italy, and German states. Mazzini believed that God intended nations to be natural units of mankind. ठीक है, ये बिलीव करते थे ये मजीनी. ठीक है, और ठीक है, एंड मेटर्निच के बारे में एक कोट दिया मेटर्निच ने कि डिस्क्राइब्ड हिम एज द मोस्ट डेंजरस एनिमी टू आवर सोशल ऑर्डर. सोशल ऑर्डर का मतलब कंजर्वेटिव सोशल ऑर्डर है, और ये एक बहुत बड़े एनिमी थे बिकॉज ही वांटेड टू रेवोल्यूशनलाइज, ही वांटेड नेशनलिज्म टू be an order, be a social order. He didn't want autocratic monarchies or conservatism, right? He wanted democracy. So that is why he did it like that. And then we have age of revolutions in the 1830 to 1848, which will speak of how ये poems या फिर क्या है ये ड्रामास और ये लैंग्वेजेस, how they brought all of these people together. Okay, and we can straightly skip this part. Okay, the revolution of the liberals. Now we need to talk about the making of German and Italy. That means unification of Germany and unification of Italy. Now after 1848, nationalism in Europe moved away from its association with democracy and revolution. Nationalist sentiments were often mobilized by conservatives for promoting state power and achieving political dominance over Europe. ठीक है, अब हम German unification learn कर लेंगे. Okay, this was observed that process of within which German and Italy came to be unified as nation states. Now Germany, in the initiation of Persia, its chief minister Otto Bismarck was the architect of this process, carried with the help of Persian army and bureaucracy. Bureaucracy का मतलब like a non-elected council of states, all right, which is not elected directly by the people. All right, it was like chosen, like the cabinet ministers, like financial minister या ministry of defense, ये सब ministry of foreign affairs, ये सब choose करते हैं, like PM. okay, ठीक है, ये bureaucracy है. ठीक है, ऑटोमन बिस्मार्क ये आर्किटेक्ट, मतलब ये इन्होंने प्लान बनाई थी इस रेवोल्यूशन या यूनिफिकेशन के लिए, ठीक है. इट वाज इन जनवरी 1871 द पर्शियन किंग विल्हेल्म द फर्स्ट प्रोक्लेम्ड जर्मन एम्परर इन द सेरेमनी हेल्ड एट वर्साई. वर्साई है कहाँ पर? फ्रांस में, ठीक है. ऑन द ब्रिटली कोल्ड मॉर्निंग ऑफ 18th January 1871 an assembly comprising the prince of German state, representative of army, important Persian minister including the chief minister of Otto von Bismarck, gathered in the unheated hall of mirrors in Palace of Versailles to proclaim the new German emperor head, the Kaiser Wilhelm the First of Persia. He became the German king. All right. The nation building process in Germany had demonstrated the dominance of Persia's state power. The new state placed strong emphasis on modernizing the currency, banking, legal, and judicial system in Germany. Persia measures and practices often became model for the rest of Germany. All right. And now we have Italy united, that was led by obviously Giuseppe Mazzini, Giuseppe Garibaldi during the 1830s. And we'll see how Italy was divided. Now Italy was divided, and see the north part was ruled by Austro-Hungary Empire, and the Pope ruled the southern regions under the dominant the Bourbon kings of Spain, the south region, and the center was ruled by Pope, the religious head of Christian community. All right. And even the Italian language had not acquired one common form and still had many regional and local variations. All right. Okay. And he had also formed a secret society called Young Italy of the demonstration of his goals. The failure of the revolutionary uprising in both 1831 and 1848 meant that mantle now fell on the Sardinia Piedmont under the rule of King Victor the Emmanuel II. See, these Giuseppe Mazzini failed two revolutions, right? Then he wanted something to succeed. So the mantle, that means the pressure or whatever the hope, that fell on Sardinia Piedmont, a princely state which was ruled by King Victor Emmanuel II. Princely state का मतलब है they were not ready to converge with the Austria or Pope or the south of the Bourbon kings. Okay, they were like their own state. All right. And then unify Italy states through war. In the eye of the ruling elites of the region, a unified Italy offered them possibility of economic development and political dominance. ठीक है. Chief Minister Cavour, who led the movement to unify the regions of Italy, was neither a revolutionary nor a democrat. Okay, he was not a revolutionary and not a democrat. Like many other wealthy and educated members of the Italian elite, he spoke French much better than he did Italian. See, even in Galicia, they spoke Polish as a matter of diplomacy. Okay, for the matter of diplomacy, they speak all of these languages. All right. So through tactful diplomatic alliance with France engineered by Cavour, Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating Austrian forces in 1859. Apart from regular troops, a large number of armed volunteers under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi joined the fray. In 1860, they marched into South Italy and the Kingdom of Two Sicilies. South Italy was ruled by the Bourbon kings of Spain. All right. And they got the support of local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed the king of and united Italy. However, much of the Italian population, among whose rates of illiteracy was very high, that means they were not literates, remained blissfully unaware of the liberal nationalist ideology. They did not know about this and did not know what the hell was happening in their state. All right. So the peasant masses who supported Garibaldi in the southern Italy had never heard of Italia. That means the Italian nation, all right, and believe that Latalia was Victor Emmanuel's wife. All right, so that's a funny thing. And we have to read about the strange case of Britain and how it was unified. It was obviously divided into Ireland, Scotland, and it was a fight between the Protestants and the Catholics, and the British, all of them united, and the United Irishmen, and incorporated to the United Kingdom in 1801. A new British nation was forged through the propagation of the dominant English culture. The symbols of New Britain, the British flag, United Union Jack, the national anthem, the God Save Our Noble King, Now, then it was the God Save Our Noble Queen. Now, since King Charles is the king, it is also God Save Our Noble King. The English language were actively promoted, and the older nations survived as the only subordinate partners in the nation. Now we have visualizing the nation. We have to study about. We'll study about the allegories and whatever the people introduced, and we have to know about the Balkan regions, and we'll just read this. All right, so the Balkan was a region of geographical and ethnic variation comprising the modern day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Solvia, Serbia, and Montenegro. They won't ask you about all of this composition, but still you have to study the spread of idea of romantic nationalism in the Balkan together within the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire made the region very explosive. That means there were a lot of wars, there were a lot of conflicts. Okay, the Balkan people based their claims for independence on political rights, on the nationality, and used history to prove that they had once been independent but subsequently been subjected by foreign powers. That means they were colonized or something like that. Hence the rebellious nationalities in the Balkans through of struggles as attempted to win back their long lost independence. So we read about that, and we need to obviously please uh, go through your textbook, whatever you have, study materials you have, and please do study all of these images and these little things that they have given below or on the sides. Okay, and now we have done with this, and we need to know about the nationalism and imperialism का relation जो है. Imperialism का मतलब like जो colonizing जो ब्रिटिश ने किया था इंडिया के ऊपर, दैट इज कॉल्ड इंपीरियलिज्म. ओके, इंपीरियल. सो इंपीरियल ये कॉलोनाइज्ड कॉलोनीज के लिए नेशनलिज्म होता है ये इंपीरियलिज्म से फ्री होना. ये जो कॉलोनाइजर्स है वो जब जाएंगे तब हमें नेशनलिज्म मिलेगा. लाइक इंडिया में हम जब इन ब्रिटिश को भगाएंगे इंडिया से तब हमें नेशनलिज्म मिलेगा, तब हम एक नेशन स्टेट बनवाएंगे, बना सकते हैं. ठीक है, ये होगा. So I thought I would wrap this chapter under 20 minutes, but I wrapped it under 40 minutes. कुछ नहीं, it needs, obviously history is a really big subject, really a vast subject, so we need 40 minutes to cover this chapter. Okay, so obviously they will again I'm telling you, emphasizing on the fact, they will give it for the 1 marks MCQs में आएंगे, और ये 5 मार्क्स के लिए तो श्योर है, 5 मार्क्स के लिए नहीं आया तो 4 मार्क्स जो केस बेस्ड स्टडी आ जाएंगी उनमें आएंगी. ठीक है, ठीक है. चलो, अगेन आई एंड दिस चैप्टर. सो प्लीज़ अगेन इफ यू वांट टू लिसन टू दिस वीडियो अगेन, आई नो इट वाज अ बिट ऑफ फास्ट, मैंने एक रफ्तार बनाई रखी. सो आफ्टर दिस प्लीज़ गो to your textbook or whatever the study materials you have. If you have noted down the points through this video, please go through that again, revise it 2 to 3 times, like in intervals. आप आज रिवाइज करेंगे तो 2 दिन बाद रिवाइज करें, उसके 2 दिन बाद, ऐसा रखे तो एक्टिव रिविजन होगा आपका, आपके सिर में जाएगा, घुस बैठेगा, वो छोड़ेगा नहीं. ठीक है, चलो. आई एम पवन एन गौड़ा. I'm your history and geography teacher. So thank you for watching Subjects Academy Learner.